Hello my viewers and welcome back to my channel. In this thought-provoking video, we look at a candid exploration of a concept that often sparks discomfort and introspection, W privilege. Now join me as different palm color individuals openly share their personal journeys, recounting moments when the realization of WP dawned upon them. Now these individuals courageously talk about the stark disparities that exist, highlighting how they navigate a world where fear during police encounters and the specter of racial profiling in job searches are not part of their lived experiences. Wow. Now, unpacking the layers of privilege, the video unveils a poignant perspective on why discussions around Black history are met with resistance. The contributors postulate that the suppression of this narrative isn't fueled by a desire to shield the younger generation from guilt, but rather to evade the uncomfortable questions that might arise. Now, it's a deep conversation into the systemic socialization of American palm color individuals, suggesting that confronting historical truths might be a challenge deeply ingrained in the fabric of society. Now, as these voices come together, a collective acknowledgement emerges, an affirmation that WP is a real and impactful force. This video serves as a platform for candid conversations. So for now, check out these videos. I will be right back.
Oh, but I do know your benefits, sweetheart. Let me give you an example of privilege in my lifetime. I lived in Philly, Germantown, Queen Lane, anyone who knows. Sitting out front of my building, everybody outside, it's summertime. Cops stop and frisk. Tell everybody to get up against the wall, except me. They told me to go inside, that I don't want to be outside right now. I'm the only person that was there, and I'm the only one that the cops literally told to go away. Privilege. Also, whenever I am stopped by the cops, I don't fear for my life. Whenever I go for a job interview, I'm not racially profiled because my name is too ethnic. And for you to say that race doesn't count, especially after what just happened in Jacksonville at that dollar store, when that went in there purposely to Black people, specifically Black people, when he had tried previously to get into a HBCU to kill Black people, couldn't do it, so he went to the damn dollar store in a Black neighborhood. But race doesn't count. And then the coward turned the gun on himself and took it because he could not stand being held accountable for his own actions. Again, people trait. That's why we're fighting so hard right now to suppress Black history, because it's not our younger generation that feels bad. When they learn about what's going on, I just saw a video of a lady saying her daughter learned about, not Rosa Parks, Ruby Bridges. And she asked her daughter, did she feel bad? And the only reason her daughter felt bad is because she wanted to know why people at that point in time didn't do something. So that's why they're trying to suppress this Black history. They don't want us asking our elders, our grandparents, our parents, why didn't you do something? Why did you participate in that? Why didn't you try to do something different? Why didn't you try to fix it? Why so much hate? Why? They don't want us questioning them, knowing how barbaric, how animalistic, how vile they were and still are. So now there's this argument, race doesn't count. Oh, I didn't do anything. But the problem is, when you don't do anything, you're just as guilty as the rest. If you're out in public and you see somebody bullying somebody or whatever, you don't do something to stop it, you're just as guilty as they are. You're just as they are. You're just as bad as they are. So to say you don't have any type of privilege, that's to say that race doesn't count in a nation that was built on slavery, built by brutality, enslavement, see that is still going on to this day. The only reason you don't want to admit it is because you don't want to give up your privilege. You don't want to give up your status. You don't care about the people who are marginalized, who are suffering. You don't care because it doesn't affect you, and it doesn't affect you because
I get this question all the time. Why didn't it feel wrong inside of you when you believed him? Referencing Trump here. And the truth is, even the most radicalized minds never believe that they are operating from a position of hate or of being wrong. As crazy as this may sound, even when I went to the extremes of joining a supremacist organization, I never once in my mind thought that I was operating from a position of hate. I thought my very existence on this planet was being threatened. And that's the danger of terrorist organizations and cults. Many times those members believe that they are fighting the good fight, that they are doing the Lord's work. It's all under the guise of moral superiority, that we are doing what is right. And I thought, as a straight Christian male, I was under attack in the United States of America. And there are many more just like me who still believe the same thing today. You see, to us, inclusivity felt like oppression. And this is why education is so important. This is why having conversations with people of different beliefs and backgrounds, demographics, socioeconomic status is so important. Because if we're truly going to change the narrative, we must first change our approach to the conversation. No matter what belief system you come from, no matter what side of the aisle you are on, choose to see the good in everyone. Always operate from a position of love. You never know when the lights will come on. You could be the person that plants the seed that ultimately changes someone's life, and you never know what kind of impact that person may have on the rest of the world. For instance, when I met Rashawn, I was a die-hard Trump fan, and I said that Trump would be the best thing that would ever happen to this country and the black community. I had book after book sent into prison. Look, here, it's got my DC number, everything. All supporting Trump. His Mike Lindell buddy. Candace Owens, blackout. Resistance at all costs. Kimberly Strassel, who writes for the Wall Street Journal. I had the real savior complex that many people on the right have, that they think that they know what's best for every other group of people, whether it's women, whether it's marginalized communities, minorities, it doesn't matter. That's savior complex. We know what's best for you. The irony of it all from my story and my journey is that I had a black Muslim with not even a high school education, had been in prison since he was 16 years old. Plant that seed in my life and begin the education process and the deconstruction process for me. But that would have never been possible had he not chosen to be my friend first, regardless of what my belief system was. That friendship's what led me to read The New Jim Crow, The Color of Law, How to Be Anti-Racist, Black Reconstruction, The Quaking of America, My Grandmother's Hands. I would have never been exposed to a different worldview, a different perspective, had it not been for that friendship with Rashawn Clark. I believe in the goodness of humanity. I believe there are a bunch of well-intentioned people on both sides that are upholding a corrupt system and corrupt politicians on both sides. And if we, the people, truly take the time to develop friendships and meaningful relationships with each other, we can genuinely unite and change the world. Unconditional love is the only power truly strong enough to genuinely transform lives.
First of all, yes, other races do discriminate. Other races are towards other races. But the thing that is unique about Americans is that we hold all the institutional power in the United States. And I am talking about them in the United States. People love to derail the conversations about race by looking at other countries and pointing to other matter. All you're really doing is just derailing and trying not to talk about the topic at hand. The topic at hand is in America, the United States. I can't really do anything about other countries, but I'm trying to figure it out, Second of all, guilt thing. I find it interesting that anytime a person boldly comes on social media and is yeah, we suck, we've been so historically terrible to other races in this country, it's you guys accuse me of hating myself when I feel I'm just being neutral and factual. That's just a reality. And acknowledging reality is not hateful, which I know that's really hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, but it's the truth. You see, I don't want to say that I'm not like other people because that's not true. I definitely benefit from the privilege of being, but I was not born into this in this country the same way that most Americans were because I'm a first-generation American and I come from an immigrant family. So I was born into the right body in this country to take advantage of the privileges that come with it, but I was not properly socialized to perform in this body in such a way that allows me access to those privileges, if that makes sense. I had to be real scrappy as a teenager and a young adult to figure out how to work with wool and around wool. And my subjective experience has been that American wool are incredibly thin-skinned and fragile about just about anything you can think about, compared to other groups of people especially. There is so much labor that has to go into avoiding the expression of unpleasant truths to American people. American people are inherently systemically socialized to not be able to handle the truth. Our American education system paints this happy little picture about us getting along with the Native Americans, and we conveniently are the good guy in every story that we're told about ourselves. We're like the golden children in a dysfunctional family dynamic who's looking at our siblings who are being treated worse than us and being like, I don't understand why you're complaining, like everything's fine. I actually remember my parents, when I was growing up, they would say things to me like, Christine, these American white, they're kind of weak. They're very sensitive. Like, there's certain questions you can't really ask them directly. You can't say anything too directly to them, otherwise they just crumble right in front of you, And they were right. They're so right. Like, white kids are so thin-skinned and fragile in so many ways. Our egos, especially, are so fragile. And most are socialized with an inability to look at the truth. And frankly, my position on this subject doesn't really come from the fact that I feel guilt. It comes from the fact that I feel a lot of discomfort around the fact that I am simply treated better and afforded more opportunities because I learned how to perform a very specific type of in this country. It frankly wigs me out. You know what I mean? Because I did not grow up. I was not socialized, right, by my own family to think that I deserved this access more than other people, like Americans are. And it's not always like explicit socialization. The socialization that we receive about race comes from family, schools, media, all of it. Like, it's a systemic thing. It's a systemic effort. You can have like the most compassionate anti-parents in the world, but your kids are still going to be watching movies where like people are portrayed as thugs and criminals. You know what I mean? It is everywhere.
I did not know when I moved into the neighborhood that I live in now that there would be blatantly that I would have to speak up about, or that so many people that live here would have a problem with me speaking up about it. But shortly after we moved in here, another lovely couple family moved in down the street from us, and they were not, which to me was no big deal because I've always lived in diverse areas before. This was my first time living in a place that was predominantly, but I didn't think that necessarily meant that where I was moving would be open to in their neighborhood. Well, not long after they moved in, literally the U-Haul was still in their driveway. Our neighbor had come over to us while we were outside and made a comment about, here goes the neighborhood and how the wrong kind of people are moving in now because the prices are low. I don't know what would make somebody think that they could say something like that to me, but I guess since we had just moved in, he didn't know us very well and didn't know that we were just not the kind of people to say that type of thing to. So flash forward a bit, and it comes to the point where I've heard enough comments, not just about race, but about people with disabilities, about people's gender. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something in our community Facebook group about it. I'm going to say that we as a community have to do better, and that if people in our community are experiencing targeting because of any of those reasons, to reach out, because I want to show them that there are good neighbors here and that they will be supported and that they will have friends here and do not have to feel like an outcast. Well, let me tell you, that did not go over well. First comment was from a man telling me how he had never experienced anything like that in the 10 years that he's lived here. And I told him, of course, you have not experienced anything like this in the 10 years that you've lived here, because in the 10 years that you've lived here, you have been the entire time. This was followed by a woman responding, who I believe her actual name was Aaron, but I could be wrong, responding to tell me that I should not be slandering anybody or name calling anybody. I'm sorry, but telling you when you're is not slander. Nor am I name calling anybody by saying, hey, let's not make comments about our neighbors. But as you can imagine, I got kicked out of the group real fast, and they told me to go post this on my own profile where nobody would see it.
So here it is.
Welcome back, my viewers. Now, the narratives shared in this video offer a glimpse into the pervasive impact of WP on Black individuals and minority groups. It really explains a stark contrast in life experiences as contributors discuss the inherent fearlessness they enjoy in interactions with law enforcement and job searches due to the absence of racial profiling, and many more other things they enjoy. But for Black people and minorities, this discrepancy in treatment is a lived reality, shaping not only their daily experiences, but also the trajectory of Black people's lives. Now, the fear that accompanies police encounters and the struggle against racial profiling in employment underscores the systemic hurdles Black people face. The unspoken advantages granted by palm color privilege often translate into disparities in opportunities, education, and economic well-being. Moreover, the video hints at a broader consequence: the intentional suppression of Black history. Now, this suppression is seen not merely as an attempt to shield younger generations from guilt, but rather a strategy to maintain a narrative that avoids uncomfortable questions about historical injustices. It reflects a structural flaw in society, limiting access to information and perpetuating a cycle of ignorance. This sheds light on how these systemic dynamics adversely affects Black people and minority communities. The impact of WP on Black people and minority communities extends far beyond individual anecdotes. It is deeply intertwined with systemic inequalities that manifest in various aspects of life. Education, for instance, often becomes a battleground where disparities are glaring. Unequal access to quality education, driven by economic disparities and discriminatory practices, perpetuates a cycle of limited opportunities for minority groups. Employment, as mentioned in the video, is another arena where the consequences of WP are felt keenly. Racial profiling during job searches, unconscious biases in hiring processes, and limited representation in leadership positions contribute to a persistent wage gap and hinder career progression for Black individuals and minorities. The criminal justice system becomes a stark illustration of these disparities. Black people and minorities are disproportionately affected by systemic biases, leading to higher rates of incarceration and harsher sentences compared to palm color people for similar offenses. Now, this not only disrupts individual lives, but also perpetuates a cycle of disadvantage within communities. Healthcare is yet another factor where palm color privilege plays a role. Minority groups often face disparities in access to quality healthcare, leading to poorer health outcomes and exacerbating existing inequalities. Historical discriminatory practices such as redlining restricted Black individuals and minority communities from accessing desirable neighborhoods and equitable housing opportunities. This has had enduring effects as disparities in housing has contributed significantly to the wealth gap, limiting the ability of Black families to build intergenerational wealth through property ownership. Now, the media also plays a role in shaping narratives and perpetuating stereotypes. The underrepresentation or misrepresentation of Black and minority individuals has reinforced biased perspectives, contributing to societal prejudices and limiting opportunities for accurate representation and positive role modeling. Now, the concept of microaggressions often experienced by Black individuals and minorities also stems from WP itself. These subtle, often unintentional acts of discrimination can accumulate, creating an environment where individuals from marginalized groups feel alienated, undervalued, or even invalidated. Systemic racism and WP has contributed to disparities in access to resources, healthcare, and social services. These disparities existing challenges and hinder the overall well-being and progress of Black people and minority communities. Does WP exist? Of course it does. Now, this is the societal advantages that palm color individuals may experience or enjoy based on their skin color in various aspects of life, such as education, employment, housing, and interactions with law enforcement. This concept highlights systemic inequalities that disproportionately favor palm color individuals, often unintentionally, while disadvantaging people of color and Black people. Now, WP encompasses a range of unearned advantages and societal benefits that are often unnoticed or taken for granted by those who possess them. Things like education. Disparities in educational opportunities contribute to WP Access to quality schools, advanced courses, and extracurricular activities can be influenced by socioeconomic factors, and minority students often face obstacles in these areas. Employment. Palm-color individuals may experience advantages in hiring processes, promotions, and overall career progression due to implicit biases. This has resulted in a wage gap and limit representation in leadership positions for people of color and black people. Housing. Historical practices like redlining have limited housing options for minority communities, affecting their ability to build generational wealth through home ownership, while palm-color individuals have more opportunities to live in desirable neighborhoods. Criminal justice. Systemic biases in law enforcement, the judiciary, and income disproportionately impact black people and people of color. Racial profiling, harsher sentences, and unequal treatment within the criminal justice system has contributed to WP. Healthcare, media representation, microaggressions, and so many more other things. We have finally come to the end of the video. What do you, my viewers, have to say about this? Share your comments in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next video as I bring you another interesting video.